recollection myself. And Advocate Ramsamy indicated last night that she had got the list of names from my office, wherein I had indicated that this list had been provided by Mr. Perumal after his having engaged with Mr. Adams. And that is the recollection she has and the recollection she provided to me. I cannot gainsay her recollection because I don't have an independent recollection. So
Indeed.
I'm not prepared to say that she is wrong, except that that's the recollection she has.
So, if we accept what you say, and similarly, we too don't have a basis to gainsay it, before you authorized even a preliminary investigation, that suggests that Mr. Perumal was already engaging with Mr. Adams.
That is correct.
Was he doing so within his mandate in circumstances where IDAC itself had not even authorized an investigation, a preliminary investigation, let alone an investigation in terms of Section 28? How could he do that? And on what authority does he so do?
He would have to indicate why he engaged with Mr. Adams over and beyond the initial indication of provide a Section 27 affidavit.
Okay, now as the ID...
So I'm not sure if as part of that went further for purposes of clarification, but for purposes of the process, we had a Section 27. I've given it to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor then submits an application.
And at this juncture, as I understand things, Mr. Perumal is not aware of the Section 27. Recall yesterday, you said you received it, you considered it, and you referred it to Advocate Ramsamy. So none of, the day before yesterday, I had understood you to suggest that you engaged Mr. Sissoko on that affidavit. But yesterday you clarified that no, you hadn't.
Correct.
So, as at the time you referred it to Advocate Ramsamy, you were about the only person who was aware of that affidavit. How does Mr. Perumal become aware and go so far as to engage the complainant, Mr. Adams, to obtain further information? Technically, he has begun the investigation, unless he was informed by you.
Yesterday, I did indicate that he contacted Mr. Adams to indicate he must provide a Section 27. So he's aware of that process only, from my understanding. But what engagements he would have had with him in between that process, Commissioners, I'm unable to take further, except that he would have spoken to Mr. Adams, had him provide the Section 27. Accordingly, I received a document in an envelope. I perused the document, which is the Section 27, and I then handed that to Advocate Ramsamy for the legal process of submitting a Section 28 application.
Now, I invite you as the ID to comment on the conduct of Mr. Perumal. Do you have any comment to his conduct of initiating what would sound from what you state, his own investigation before you authorize an investigation to be undertaken by contacting the complainant and obtaining this list of names from M? Is that lawful?
In terms of the process we followed, and after he engaged with Mr. Adams, because I don't have the direct knowledge of why and if he engaged with Mr. Adams, I do rely on Advocate Ramsamy. There isn't a process for that action.
Please say that again.
I said there isn't a process that I can refer to Commissioners for why he would have engaged Mr. Adams.
No, I'm asking you about the legality of his conduct. You are the head of the institution. This is brought to your knowledge that a very senior member of IDAC has conducted himself in the fashion that you describe. And I want to find out from you whether you consider that to be legal, and if it is not, what your comment to it is. And this is before I get to my third question, is now that you've been informed, what steps are you going to take?
So, nothing, I think procedurally, I get the legality thereof. Procedurally, investigators would engage witnesses or complainants. But in terms of counsel asking me to provide a specific rule or legislation, there isn't one. Having brought that, now having the answer from Advocate Ramsamy, we would have to address the conduct of Mr. Perumal. But it is conduct that we would have to escalate, as we do have the IDAC judge for an independent consideration of the legality and or not of his conduct.
You escalate before you consider, you are the head of the institution.
Yes.
So you won't consider the conduct, you won't deal with it, you'll immediately escalate.
No,
what
I'm not
do you
saying that
plan
I
to do?
won't. I have to consider the conduct. I have to get a response from him. If the response is outside of the framework and the legality, it must then be dealt with through the IDAC judge.
Okay. Now, please locate it within the framework of legality in circumstances where on your own testimony, you have not authorized an investigation.
There is no legality that I can point to, commissioners.
And it's important because as we go through these matters, one gets a sense, and I may be wholly wrong, and I would need you to help me to change my mind. It would sound like everybody in IDAC is on a frolic of their own. And this is the start now with this particular investigation. And as we'll see going forward, that seems to permeate through the organization. Is my understanding correct or wholly wrong? And I do accept, I may have the wrong end of the stick.
They don't go on a frolic of their own.
Okay.
We do adhere to the processes and the prescripts. I'm not saying someone may not deviate. Investigators are out in the field. If there is a deviation and it comes to the fore, then we have to deal with it and understand why the deviation. But there isn't a frolic of their own. They have to adhere to the internal processes. And as I did indicate to commissioners yesterday, apart from the legislation, we have tried to operationalize things in a practical manner. But if they have worked outside of the accepted framework, which is common knowledge in IDAC, then I take the point that council makes.
Can I just express the point differently? That you don't have standard operating procedures. You don't have protocols. And I say this because from the first day that you testified, as you were reading your statement, the question kept coming up, do you have anything that regulates this internally? And you kept saying, it's how we practice, it's what we do. So the comment comes from that context, that you seem to have these unwritten rules of how we do things, and which allow people, your people, to make it up as they go along. You know, if Mr. Perumal, Chief Perumal, wants to speak to Mr. Adams, then you're telling us there's no prescribed process that he can be held to that says to him, until there is a decision that we are taking this matter on, you may not engage with a complainant or any potential witness because this and this and this could go wrong, right, about it. We all have to wait until a decision is made. if you don't have that kind of operating procedure prescribed, you could never blame him for rushing off to go and hold his conversation, whatever the content of the conversation may be, including if he chooses to prompt witnesses, give me names, do you have names? Your affidavit doesn't have names, give me names, and what are you saying about those names? There's nothing that you could say you acted out of the boundaries of what is acceptable according to our prescripts. Is that not a fair comment to make?
I take your point. If you would allow me just to add something.
Yeah.
It's not that we work without process. There are processes that are mapped out in the majority of, you get to section 27, when you get to 27, what it is that we must, there's a few of the, not a few, there's quite a few of those processes, Commissioner Baloy, that have been made practical for operational purposes. The point that is important that you make is...
When you say made practical, what do you mean? That everyone understands that's how we do it?
Process map.
Okay.
So they are process mapped.
Okay.
So there are those process maps. The point that you make that becomes important for a future consideration is what are all the eventualities that we should prepare for if you take this example? And did we prepare for those eventualities? And I think that is an important point that Commissioner makes, and one that I have to agree is we didn't process map every eventuality. It therefore in itself becomes a flaw in the process, in step 1 to step 2. But if something happens in between, what are the do's and don'ts? And in that environment, it has been somewhat difficult to process map every single thing. But I do take your point.
Yes, I don't want you to misunderstand me, to be saying your processes must provide for every eventuality. That would be to put too high a demand and standard that are on you and may prove to be impractical. It's not anything close to that I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is, and maybe let me put it kind of differently, it is, I would expect that Chief Perumal and everybody in IDAC, not just you, everybody knows that before a decision is made to take on a case, we do not speak to witnesses. We do not speak to complainants. I would expect that.
Correct.
And if there is such a position, and then we are able to judge Chief Perumal's conduct, that you acted outside of a prescribed protocol, in that you went and consulted with a complainant, a potential complainant, even before a decision was made to take on this case for investigation. I'm speaking to that we have to have a measure against which we measure and consider what you say Chief Perumal did, that he went and got a list of people who are not in the Section 27, before you made a decision to take the matter on. At the very least, it's a point of curiosity. Why would and how would he have gone and gotten these names if there was no decision yet at that point? And I would want to be able to say to him, you acted to him, not you, to him, Chief, you acted contrary to your operating procedures. Explain why in this case you did that. You understand the point I'm making?
I understand the point you are making, Commissioner Baloy.
Yes.
And I did say yesterday that or one of the days, sorry if I got my days mixed, but as has been the case when a Section 27 is maybe lacking in some or other detail, I just want that clarification. I'm not taking it to Mr. Perumal, that we do engage with the referee for purposes of clarity and or more information. That is allowed. But in terms of you can't do it. There's no hard and fast rule that you can't do it. It's preferable you really don't do it, except for purposes of clarity, where the Section 27 may lack sufficiency of detail in terms of the requirements of is there reasonable suspicion made out, etc., etc. Those are the grounds on which I would.
Yes, I understand you explained that yesterday. I would expect that in that process of seeking clarifications, that's a formal process. It's recorded. It is a formal process. You may not at that point yet have decided to take on the case, but I would expect that there would be a record that Chief Perumal spoke to Mr. Adams on this day, and this is what was discussed between them. Otherwise, if you don't have that kind of formal record, then there's no accountability whatsoever. You have no idea what your people are doing. So I expect that there must be a formal process, and Chief Perumal should be able to say to us that I got an instruction I got this Section 27 from the ID on this date, right? And we determined, or I determined, that it requires particulars. I met with Mr. Adams on this day, right? And here's what I discussed with him. These are the questions I asked him, and this is where I got these names. I'm talking about that kind of process. It has to be in place. Otherwise, you are in an environment where people indeed get to do what they decide is appropriate without any guidance.
Yes, there should be a record in the person's diary,
yes,
and or an information note compiled,
yes,
of what the engagement was. I agree with you, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Advocate Johnson, just for clarity, you said that your processes do not cover all eventualities. What I want to know is whether, with regard to the Fadil complaint, I'm very sorry, the Fadil Adams complaint or issue, there was anything out of the ordinary which would not have been covered by your processes?
Not that I can think of, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. I cannot. Yes, Chair. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, Advocate Johnson.
Good morning, Commissioner.
The list of names, so what Advocate Sillo started with, I had understood you that you say the list of names came from Mr. Adams.
According to the prosecutor, yes.
Yes, and those names were not in the Section 27 referral, the affidavit.
That is correct, Commissioner.
Yes. Now, your Section 2813 authorization, we were in File 8 on 3282.
Sorry, the reference, Commissioner?
File 8?
Yes, I have file 8.
Page 3282.
38.
3282.
3282. I am there.
So I've moved past Mr. Perumal. We are now dealing with the ID's conduct. What you are saying in this authorization is that you have reason to believe that the offenses you've mentioned on page 1 have been committed or are being committed by the people listed in the annexure. And then you mention the 12 people. Now, what was the factual basis for your conclusion or your reason to believe that 8 of the 12 people there have committed the offenses listed on page 1 and they should be investigated? Because the only people who were mentioned in the affidavit, we know it was 3 or 4 people, and the offenses those 3 or 4 people had committed were mentioned in the Section 27 affidavit. Now, if all Mr. Adams gives Mr. Perumal is a list of names, and it's now 12 people. What is the factual basis for you coming to a conclusion, as you do, on 3283, that you have reason to believe that the persons in the annexure have committed the offenses you mentioned on page 1 of the same authorization?
Commissioner Khumalo, that would have been the application for the authorization. I did ask that that be sent, and Advocate Maga, I did send through to him. I think when we were about to conclude yesterday afternoon, it was yourself, Commissioner Khumalo, who reminded that this should have come from somewhere, and usually there's an application, and I indicated that the application is not with this document, and we did ask for that document, and the document has been procured that shows an application, and in that application these names are also mentioned.
But if the prosecutor has not engaged with Mr. Adams, and all you've given the prosecutor is the Section 27 affidavit, how can the prosecutor come to you and say, I have reason to believe that people whose names are not mentioned in the affidavit, whose conduct is not mentioned in the affidavit, have committed such serious offenses as you list in 1.1 to 1.11 on page 3282. Where would the prosecutor get that from? Because all you've given the prosecutor is the affidavit. And on what basis would you then form a view that the people whose names are unknown to you, there's no complaint in respect of these people, there's no affidavit suggesting that any of these people have done anything wrong? How do you arrive at a conclusion, or how do you form a view that they have committed such serious offenses and should be investigated?
I would just like to, if I can, have sight of the application. But I hear the point that you are making, Commissioner. She was provided with the names. She would have had to indicate then in the summation whether or not they are linked and how they are linked. And that is what, if we could just look at that, so that I do not, I took Commissioner Baloy's point yesterday afternoon.
But you see, my difficulty remains that all you give her is the affidavit. Then you give her a list of names.
So,
My difficulty is this, that you give her the affidavit. We have seen the Section 27 affidavit. It doesn't mention most of the people in the annexure. It does not say any of these people have committed offenses. You give her that affidavit, and then you say you gave her a list of names. That's all you gave her, without saying what those people did or what their involvement is. All you gave her was a list of names. What could she write back to you based only on the affidavit and the list of names that would make you form a view that these people have committed such serious crimes that would justify an investigation against them?
the application would have had to link them to the offenses. And I would just like to see that part. But what I have to concede, Commissioner Khumalo, is in the absence of there being a link between what is said in the 27 and the list of names.
That should be the only link.
Yeah, then they shouldn't be included.
They should not have been included in this annexure. Because even you, as you got that application, you would say to her, but these people are not in the affidavit. No allegation is made against them. So where would you have got this link for you to include these people in the application that you give to me? Because the same affidavit you would have seen before it went to the prosecutor.
Would be the
So
same.
there's nothing the prosecutor could have told you that you did not already know based on the affidavit and based on the list which you gave to the prosecutor. So for you to form the view that these people have committed fraud, defeating the ends of justice, breach of these various statutes, there has to be a factual basis. It cannot just be made in the dark, and then IDAC uses its powers to attack, or to attack is a strong word, let me withdraw that, to target South African citizens without any factual basis and without any legal basis, and decide that it's going to conduct an investigation against them. I would understand if you said, Mr. Adams came back with a supplemented Section 27 affidavit, and in that affidavit, he made allegations against these people and told IDAC what conduct on their part constitutes an offense, because that would have been a basis for you to authorize an investigation against them. But in the absence of that, I cannot see how you could have authorized an investigation against many of these people listed in the annexure. Do you want to comment?
I can take the point no further.
But you accept?
I accept the point, because the information came, when you look at the documentation, he's made statements, it is after that date, and commissioners are referring me to as at. And I can take it no further, Commissioner Kumalo.
One or two questions before the last question. I heard you say, if I could